Hey guys,
Hello.
Sunday
It's
afternoon, lazy Sunday
oh
afternoon.
yeah. Took me a nap. James wouldn't be quiet though, so I didn't get to really go to sleep.
Her
Kept
mid-
bugging me.
her middle name ought to be Sleep. I promise you, she can do it at any time. I wish I could turn the lights off like she does.
I worked so hard, that's why.
Anyway, on a high note, we just got off the phone with Troy. I gave y'all an update that Troy was gonna go into a program, and he hoping they'll start that around May 5th, and he sounded real good. Um, he wants to thank all of y'all for your prayers, and I appreciate y'all praying for
Y'all
him. And
continue because he's not there yet. He isn't in the facility just yet. So pray that Satan don't get a hold of him and drag him back out, and for Regina's safety as she deals with this and has been dealing with it. Y'all just keep him on your prayer list.
for those of y'all that'll look at this afternoon, I don't know when you'll look at it. I hope y'all look at them. But we're gonna Zoom tonight at 8 o'clock, and I hope that maybe with the Zooms that we can. I told John the other night I'd love for us to maybe do some games. I saw where we could do some scavenger games. I saw where we could do you could do bingo, but I think we'll pass on that. But you could do a who's who, and anyway, we might look into that. But we're going to Zoom at 8 o'clock tonight, and so y'all join us with that. Um, we're going to try to do a little semi lesson. Last week we talked about change. Um, I don't like change. I told you I didn't like change. I still ain't really quite sure that I like this change on this hairdo, but I ain't really got much choice until it grows back out. But anyway, I don't like change, but we have went through a lot of changes. But even this week, we're going through some changes. The president's wanting to try to get the country going back, and some of the governors have they're opening up the beaches and they're opening up some business and stuff. Kay Ivey, I think Kay Ivey doesn't want to do anything to the 31st, and I'm kind of good with that. But and I don't want to get nobody's feathers ruffled, but at some point in time, we got to get this country going back strong. And I don't mean just jump into it. I mean, whenever you dive
Common
in,
sense, people.
that's right. When you dive into water, you don't just dive in without kind of wading in a little bit first, because you don't know what's out there. We don't know what's going to be going on. But if we don't get this economy going back, I heard something that was just off the wall, and I forgot what state it was. It was one of the states that really produces a lot of hogs, and there's plants they're shutting down because the workers are getting sick, and they're scared that they're going to contaminate the whole plant. They was even talking about that the farmers can't feed the hogs. They're talking about even taking the hogs out and euthanizing them, just killing them, and then they'd probably dig a hole somewhere and bury them.
That makes me mad.
I mean, that don't make no sense at all. I mean, and I'm not trying to be silly here, but they could give the hogs away to folks. I mean, now I know a bunch of you city folks that probably don't even know where a ham come from, but they could distribute them hogs, and I'll tell you, a country boy could tell you how to take care of that hog, and could feed a lot of people with that hog. But that's just crazy to go and euthanize a bunch of hogs that way, and that's, you start thinking about it. If you shut the government down, there's the whole country down, there's stuff like that going to happen. They're talking about how famines could erupt because of food not getting distributed throughout the world. So we've got to get this economy going back again, and it's gonna take everybody in thinking on the right ways to do it. It's gonna take everybody being careful and like I said, kind of wading out into the water. I'm not making toilet paper no more. I used to do a lot of lessons on toilet paper. Well, I'm working with Acacia Forest Products. That's Mr. Tony White and Mr. Kyle White. I'm kind of the little man, which every now and then I get a few prestige jobs, but mostly I'm on the bottom rung of the ladder. I'm below the timber cutters and everything else. But anyway, in doing my job, I'm painting trees and walking land lines. I got a lot of hazards out there. Not just the fact that I could fall and land on my machete, but I got snakes I got to watch out after. I got spiders. I got briars. But the big and yellow jackets. Oh, yellow jackets. That's a bad motor scooter right there. But one of the worst culprits that I have to come in contact with is ants. And when I go up to the tree, there's going to be more than likely an ant bed right there around that tree, or somewhere close by. And if it's right there at the tree, if I disturb them, I've got to really do what I got to do to that tree real quick, because them things spread out and they are bad business. I have had to strip down because they have got up my britches leg before I realized it, and I've had to get rid of the ants. And I carry them ants for several hours because there's no way you're going to get all of them out of your pants. But
ants in your pants.
Yeah, ants in your pants. But I'm going to give you a little lesson on ants. And I was watching them out. The ants are there. I don't know if an ant sleeps. I didn't really find that fact. But on ants, there's more than 12,000 species all over the world. An ant can lift 20 times its own body weight. You've got different types of ants. You've got the queen ants. You've got the worker ants. You've got the female worker ants. You've got the male ants. The male ants and the queen ants, they both have wings. But the main purpose of the queen ant is, her main job is to mate and lay eggs. She keeps the colony productive. But you've got soldier ants. They protect the queen. They defend the colony. They gather and kill food. They attack different colonies. But one thing that I found that was amazing about those soldier ants, they will even take captive the eggs from the other colony and bring them back to the mound. They'll raise them ants up and use them for slavery in their own mound. I mean, it's crazy when you think about what these ants do. The ants don't have lungs. They breathe through holes in their bodies. They somehow or another get oxygen into their bodies. That's the way they breathe. But the ants, every one of them, the soldier ants, the queen, the female ants, the worker ants, all of them they've got specific jobs that they do to maintain that colony. And what I read was that once the queen dies, that colony more than likely won't last over but about 3 months, and the whole colony just dies out. But the ants are one thing that's amazing about the ants is they adapt to everything that goes on around them. The wintertime, they'll go deeper into the mound. The summertime, they'll be up toward the top of the mound. And a lot of times you won't even see a mound. They'll just be living under the ground in the wintertime. In the rainy seasons, you'll see them, they'll carry the eggs and they'll be deeper into the mound because the ground gets saturated with water. In the drier months, they'll bring them back up to the top of the ground. But when I step into an ant bed, it's just amazing to watch them, because you'll have, and sometimes I do stand there and watch them, because I've done got through with the tree, I've done what I wanted to do, and sometimes I'll just stir the bed up just to see what happens. And the ant bed will come alive. I mean, ants will just boil out of it. You can see the eggs in the middle of the mound. You can see the workers start gathering the eggs up in the larvae. You can see them start carrying it away to protect those eggs. But then you can see those soldier ants. You can see them start scattering away from the mound. They'll start scattering away to look for what disrupted that mound, and they're going to defend that mound. And them little suckers, it seems like once they get on you, and you don't really know they own you, you look down and see your leg is covered up, but about that time it's like one of them gives the order to attack, and every one of them go to biting at the same time. Now that's just me. That's just what it seems like. But every one of them have a certain job that they do. Where am I going with the ants? Well, it's like us, and and our worship service. I told you that Brother Dennis, and don't quote me on it, but when we was at Wanda's funeral, he was talking about how hopefully maybe we can look at some type of worship around Mother's Day. Will that be exactly what we've been doing? No. There's no way that we can probably go into a worship service. One thing is, if you told the elderly to stay home, they're not going to stay home. These older folks, they're
So committed.
they are so committed and focused on worshiping God. Once them doors are open, they're coming. And those are the ones that's most acceptable. We talked about how we may have to change, like our nursery, taking kids' temperatures and stuff like that. And it would be a good thing because just, I thought about, oh my goodness, I can't even think of their names now that we've started this video. But,
Who?
good grief. Y'all know how bad I am, but, she's got the not the autoimmune, but
Derek and Brooks.
Derek and Brooke. I'm sorry, Derek and Brooke, but y'all, their baby. She stated that they had to be careful because she can't be picking up anything that would harm her. So we've got children in our church that's that away, but I'm sure Derek and Brooke has to be very careful. So we've got to think about those things. We've got to think about our elderly. We got to think about how if they was to catch something, some of them haven't got an immune system with the medicine that they're taking. Some of them may be on chemo. But we have to think about those things. So we may have to adapt. When we talk about the ants, how they have to adapt, we may have to adapt to a different way of worship for a time being. And talking about everybody doing their part, we may all have to pitch in and do our part. Let me read the scripture before I get too far into it. And you may think, well, hey, how does this scripture even apply to what you're talking about, James? But we're talking about being living sacrifices to God. And, this is talking about doing God's will. And many times we talk about these scripture when we talk about talents and what God's given us to use. But Paul is talking to the Romans in chapter 12 of Romans. I'm starting with verse 1. And he says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. When we're transformed to the world and we're thinking like the world does, we would be like those that when this thing first happened, they took off and started ridding the shelves of toilet paper. They started ridding the shelves of sanitizer. Selfishly taking things that could have been evenly distributed amongst everybody, where everybody would have a little bit. I still go in the store and you see meat that's disappearing. When they started hearing about the meat packing places that was shutting down, we started seeing the meat being discarded from and what's so bad is later on, when this is all over with, people are going to look at their freezers and everything and say, what are we going to do with this stuff? And you're going to see freezer burnt meat thrown out into the garbage. You're going to see things just rot in people's attic, and sanitizer and stuff like that go bad because people's just wasteful that way. So we can't conform and do as the world does. We've got to live in what Jesus reminds us every day to share and take care of each other. We can't be conformed to this world. We've got to be transformed to renewing of our spirit that we have a Christ-like attitude about everything. What does conform means? It means to form or mold to the world with what the world calls normal. The believer should be transformed, that is, changed by the renewing of our mind. And I'm reading out of my study Bible. A mind dedicated to the world and its concerns will produce a life tossed back and forth by the currents of culture. We can be tossed back and forth by the currents of what the media tells us and what naysayers tell us. We've got to live on that promise that God gives us. And what's that verse in Timothy, for 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind." And we use our sound mind to make the right decisions. Just like whenever we start talking about going to worship, we got to use a sound mind in thinking about how to do that. And listen to this part. It says, "For I say," and this is verse 3, "For I say through the grace given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, but all the members do not have the same functions, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, let us prophesy in proportion to our faith. Or ministry, let us use it in our ministering. He who teaches in teaching, he who exhorts in exhortation, he who gives with liberality, he who leads with diligence, and he who shows mercy with cheerfulness." Just like the ants, they've all got a job to do. The ants adapt to doing whatever is going on, whatever kind of weather's going on, they adapt to it. They all work together, and they become one unit doing separate jobs. Whatever their responsibility is, they do it. And God has given us all gifts that, me and Bridget talked about that we may have to have study sessions at our homes where we can sit outside and gather. We may have to put the old folks in the sanctuary and put everybody else in the gym, and maybe Dustin take the youth to our youth center and spread everybody out and sanitize everything. And when you talk about doing something like that, it can't be left just to a handful of people. You've already got Brother Dennis and Dustin and Jamie fulfilling responsibilities of leading in the worship and teaching. We may have to have people just to go up and set chairs up early Sunday morning. We may have to have people stay over and sanitize and wipe everything down whenever the services are over. We don't know what is going to change and what has to take place, but we've all got to accept responsibility. And if that's all you think you can do is go up and clean up afterwards, then that's a big priority. That's something that has to be done.
Y'all, when he's sitting there talking, it just keeps running through